Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So this video is going to be that I'm going to talk about my best YouTuber Jesse Ridgway having one of his fans shown up to his house 1 year ago. Well, since I'm going to talk about the crazy fan who showed up at his house to stay there for like some months, since that was back in 2021. His name was Riley, and he's had a channel called Shallow. Like, people would name him Shallow or some, but his name is Riley. But back in 2021, he and his friend what's his name? Oh, Josh. The two fans, Riley and Josh, just showed up to their house with the dressed up like a story fire, and then they wanted to. Those fans wanted to surprise him with story fires, and then unfortunately, Jesse didn't have any rooms available for them to stay in because the basement was under construction for every new rooms at his New Jersey house. But they at first they made a plan to stay 2 nights, since they were sleeping in the theater room where they built in the basement. And they've done a lot of crazy things. Like, in the middle of the night, Riley and Josh just snuck out of the theater room, and then went into Jesse's computer and looked up something, like maybe what they posted on their channel or something. And then I think when Jesse was trying to sleep, and then he heard the construction from the other side, how one of his friends was doing some construction in the house. And then he got back to his side, and then he saw his computer turned on, and then he turned on the light, and then those two crazy fans just went, like, hacked into his computer and look up something. And then Jesse was not happy about it, and I bet he was trying to send him back to the theater room in the basement. And then next, the video on his main channel, that his mom had a tumor. The video of his mom had a tumor, since when he went over to he and his cameraman went over to his parents' house to go visit his mom for a tumor. Those two crazy fans were snuck into the trunk. They were hiding to the trunk, and then, well, since they were in his trunk without them knowing that they're right in his car in his trunk, and then they were, like, being quiet out in the front, or out in the front in the driveway. And then they have let themselves in their basement, in their parents' basement, and then just tried really hard not to make any noise and stuff like that. And then in some utility room in their basement, one of them dropped something, and then they heard a big drop, and then went to the upstairs room, and then Jesse's parents and him and the other and them heard heard a drop in the basement, and then his dad went into the basement to go look at something, look at what dropped, and then probably the utility room in the basement. He turned on a light, and then his dad's like, "What the hell are you guys doing here? Why are you in my house?" And we're nothing. We're just fans. And then, at that time, Jesse didn't know them very well. How they showed up to his house. Oh yeah, and I think Jesse was like, "How'd you guys get here to my parents' house? Like, to sneak to break into my house, break into in the basement and break into the basement since he must have left the basement door unlocked, and then his dad kicked him out, and then they were like crazy fans or some. And yeah, I bet his dad, who's called Psycho Dad, was freaking out over them, how they broke into the house and like how they let themselves in the basement. And then they had to send him outside when it was raining outside, and then they had to wait in his car, and that's all. Oh yeah. The crazy fan who used to live at the Ridge's house, who was nothing good, he was absolutely insane, and he was on drugs and stuff like that, and didn't know how to take care of himself very well. Like every time if they leave the house, he goes right after them because he doesn't like to be by himself in their house, which is All right, before I get to that, I'm gonna talk about what has he done, what incidents has he done so far. So they were celebrating their friend who has a channel, Swift's birthday, who has a channel called Emily Saxon, who used to be Jeff Saxon Vlogs. They were celebrating his birthday upstairs in the kitchen, and then Riley came from the basement and then asked some about deck chair, and then and then Riley was like nothing but being unprofessional and out of his mind. And I think he came up after when they sang him happy birthday, and then maybe he's seen Swift's channel, how he became homeless, like he got the feeling that he is deck chair or something, but and then Riley was, and then Jesse told him to relax, and then he said, "No, I'm not gonna relax," and that's all. But and then Swift kept saying, "Listen, I am not deck chair," and I forget what deck chair is, and then Riley was like threatening him and having these anger problems, and he was on drugs and stuff like that. And after when Swift screamed at him saying that he's not deck chair, he shoved the cake on his face and ruined his birthday, and then they could have locked him in the basement to celebrate his birthday, and then Swift was like, "Can I have my cake?" And then I know Ashley wanted cake too. I bet every of his friends were all pissed off at Riley, how he destroyed his birthday cake on his face. And no thanks to that crazy fan on drugs. And in the next video on Swift's channel, I think Riley has broken into Swift's bedroom in the basement, and then he took his drone and then came up to the Morton building garage and tried to confront Swift about deck chair and stuff like that. And then Swift was trying to get him to talk about, what about that cake incident that you just did to me or something. And then he should have apologized for a cake and for that cake incident. And then Riley destroyed his drone, his $1,000 drone, and that's all. And then he was like confronting Swift, and that's all. And then he was like, "Are you deck chair? Not deck chair? No, I'm not deck chair." And then he smashed his drone very hard. How he slammed on the ground, and Swift was screaming all over that. And then Riley was just out of control, out of his mind. There was a channel called Shallow. And he drank alcohol too. And I think that's all I want to add. Okay, so back in October of 2021, Jesse and Ashley spent their private time at the Rigid House. I mean, no. Not the Jersey house, the lake house in Pennsylvania. And as soon as when Jesse started the video, Ashley was like, "Did you hear that? I feel like something's coming from the lake downstairs, down in the lake." And then they went down to the lake and then see where stuff is coming from, how the geese were going off. And then it was a crazy fan, Riley, who showed up on the boat, taking a boat to their house to trespass in. And then he actually showed up to their house without their permission, with a serial killer mask on, and with a machete. And then he went up and scared them and tried to do a prank on them. And he went all over the house, and he went up on the top of the roof and looked down from the ceiling window, and they were all freaking out from the man dressed up like a serial killer, and he was right on the top of the roof. And then Jesse was like, "You could have cracked through." And then Jesse went outside from the basement, and then he was asking, where are you? And then he followed them down to the lake, and then he was like pretending to cut his face off, and then he got on the boat, and he started laughing. Yeah. And as soon as when he got out of the lake, from the boat, he was dressed up like a serial killer, was walking upstairs, and it was like, and then he was like to Jesse, "Where's the chest? Where's the chest?" And then he was trying to kick him out of the house, and that's all. And then somehow Jesse heard his voice, and then he's like, "I know that voice. Take off your mask." And then he took off his mask, and then it was Riley. And then how he did the Halloween prank. He called Halloween, one of his channels called Shallow. he's like, "Happy Shalloween," and Ashley tried calling the cops on a crazy fan showing up to their lake house to try to attack them, and then Jesse has let Shallow in with the machete and the serial killer mask on the top of his head, and then he wanted to see what they were up to, and then he was like ruining everything inside the lake house. How he was like invading their privacy there at their lake house, and then he was just like out of his mind and out of control and stuff like that, and then he was talking like the serial killer, like from Michael Myers or something, and then he felt like that lake house is like a party house and stuff like that, and he was pretending to throw a party and stuff like that, and then he was like a nonstop talker to look around the lake house, and I can't imagine being around him. He would like stress me out. Even he was stressing Ashley out. And then he saw the downstairs basement, and then he ran downstairs and go look downstairs, and then got the pool table, got every picture of his dreams hung up, and that's quite all. And then of course Riley didn't want to be alone at the New Jersey house where he lived at, since Jesse and Ashley tried telling him that he can't stay at the lake house because that's their private getaway. And then he was like putting his knees down and his hands down saying, "I can stay, bro." And then Ashley and Jesse had some privacy to talk about him, how he followed them to the lake house. And then they were like having a discussion, and then Jesse got an email from Deck Chair, and then I think it was Ashley who said Deck Chair out loud, and then Riley came into their room and then said, "I heard Deck Chair was calling," and then he was like getting into his space and trying to read his email and stuff like that. And after that, Riley just started a party in their hot tub, to drink. How he was celebrating how Deck Chair sent him an email. Like, I bet he was partying like 3 a.m. and then Jesse was like to him, "No parties. There's no parties." And that's all. And then at the end of the video, the serial killer mask was in the hot tub water, and it was scaring Jesse and Ashley. And that's all. Okay, the last thing that he did was that he was playing virtual reality on Thanksgiving while the family was having their Thanksgiving dinner. And his family wouldn't have him for Thanksgiving that year. And he was playing games in virtual reality. And then they were having discussion to say grace during Thanksgiving. And as soon as after, when his mom said there's nothing wrong with saying grace, Riley just couldn't see how he was coming up to their nice Thanksgiving table and then just bumped into their table and knocked some food and drink on the floor and stuff like that. And luckily Jesse didn't ruin Thanksgiving, since that psycho kid ruins Thanksgiving 3. And then and then Psycho Dad, Jesse's dad, was mad at him for ruining their Thanksgiving dinner. And then he put the helmet back on and tried to play. And then his dad took it off his head and then tell him to own up what he did to their Thanksgiving dinner. And They wanted him to get out, and then that's all. And he went upstairs and barged into a room, and Jesse and Ashley had a discussion with him that he should go home and see his family back to Florida, and that's all. And then a month later he moved back, and that's all, right around Christmas. Anyway, that's all I wanted to mention about him. And thanks for watching, and I don't want to bore you guys, but thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.